What's happening, everybody? On today's show, Mississippi State loses another receiver to the portal. A Georgia freshman will miss spring ball. A former Georgia running back predicts the quarterback battle. And what is Alabama getting in new OC Tommy Rees? We'll discuss with former Notre Dame quarterback Malik Zaire. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Mississippi State as they're losing another wide receiver reportedly to the transfer portal ahead of spring practice. According to Athletic, wide receiver Caleb Ducking has entered the portal as a grad transfer. He led the Bulldogs this season with 8 touchdown catches. Ducking finished 4th on the team with 46 receptions for 477 receiving yards. He was a member of Mississippi State's 2020 recruiting class coming out of JUCO. He's 6'5" and very productive wide receiver. Now, keep in mind, this comes on the heels of leading wide receiver Rara Thomas leaving Mississippi State this offseason to transfer to Georgia. Their third leading receiver, Ledietrich Griffin, he entered the portal as well back in January, but he withdrew after a few days and announced he's staying at State. State has brought back former standout receiver Chad Bumpus as the wide receivers coach, and a lot of fans and alumni are excited about him being back there. So we'll see what he can do with this receiving corps. If he loses Ducking, you still got Ledietrich Griffin and 4-star Florida wide receiver Creed Whittemore's coming in, as well as Eastern Washington transfer Freddie Roberson. So we'll see what this means for Will Rogers in the Mississippi State passing game. Remember, it's going to look a little bit different with Mike Leach no longer there. So I'll see what they look like once they hit spring ball, Mississippi State and that offense. Maybe more of a defensive team this year, Mississippi State. We'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, over at Alabama, they're settling in with their new OC in Tommy Rees. And Mike Golick Jr. was on with Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelik this week and said, look, Tommy as a coordinator is one of the smartest users of pre-snap motion, formation shifts to help identify what's going on with defenses to help give his quarterbacks information. He said, I think you got one of the smartest young up-and-coming coordinators in college football. So that's one former Notre Dame Irish player speaking on that. We'll talk with another one in just a little bit. Malik Zaire will join us. We'll get his thoughts on what Alabama is getting in Tommy Rees. On the other side, with their defensive coordinator hire in Kevin Steele, Josh Pate of 24/7 Sports said he is questioning the hire. He repeated that you could not sell him on the fact that Nick Saban would hire Steele and confidently assume he is the guy to take over the heavy task of bringing Alabama's defense back to where it's got to be. He said, you're just not selling me with all the resources at Nick Saban's disposal that Kevin Steele is the guy with no conditions tied to it, that he looked at it and said, he's who I want to run my defense. There is no way you're convincing me that that was the guy that Nick Saban wanted. So we will see. Is he wrong? Is Kevin still going to get this defense back to playing like a top 5 defense? Pete Golding did a good job, just not a great job. We'll see what Kevin still does there. Meanwhile, Lane Kiffin chiming in on the Alabama situation in a message for those folks who've been disappointed with the hires. Put it out on Twitter. He said, Alabama still has Nick Saban. And for a lot of people, that's all that matters. He just put together the number 1 recruiting class. A change in coordinators, will it even matter for Alabama? Because Nick Saban is the straw that stirs the drink there in Tuscaloosa. So Lane Kiffin defending his guy, Nick Saban. Now, he did steal Saban's defensive coordinator. I guess you can look at it. Alabama fans won't say that. I get it. Alabama fans will say, no. We kicked Pete Golding to the curb. We didn't want him anymore. Either way, he left Alabama. He's at Ole Miss now. You have to wonder if Lane Kiffin, is he playing Jedi mind tricks? What's he doing with backing? Hey, you guys respect Saban, all right? Dude, don't you go against him? Don't you compete with him for recruits and try to beat him every year on the field? Anyway, other news over at Tennessee, they conducted an internal review and discovered minor recruiting violations after the 2021 season related to going after a player in the transfer portal. The Knoxville News Sentinel reporting that based on a university document, one of Tennessee's football assistants committed an NCAA violation by talking and texting with a high school coach of a player at another SEC school who wanted to gauge the Vols' interest in him before he entered the portal. The self-reported violation is on top of the ongoing NCAA probe at Knoxville from the Jeremy Pruitt era. The university reportedly contends in response to the NCAA's notice of allegations that Pruitt and his staff knowingly concealed the violations as the school put forth its best effort to comply with the NCAA rules. I think these are silly. I mean, look, if a kid is thinking about entering the portal, what's wrong with a coach at another school reaching out to his former high school coach and saying, hey, you think that kid would come play here? What are we doing here? I get there's tampering. I get there's all that kind of stuff, but it also comes back to how can you know if the kid has any interest? You're supposed to wait until he's in the portal. I get it. But I don't know. As long as you're not reaching out to the kid specifically, reaching out to people near him, I would say that's okay, but I'm not the NCAA. In other news, Georgia pass rusher Marvin Jones Jr. not going to participate in spring practice due to a shoulder injury. Dogs HQ reporting Jones recently underwent shoulder surgery and will miss spring ball for the Bulldogs. The report said he is expected to be ready for fall camp. This would have been Jones's first spring practice with the Bulldogs. He was a member of Georgia's 2022 recruiting class, expected to take a big step moving forward. So we will see what happens with him. He was a 5-star prospect in the class of 2023, the number 24 overall player, the number 3 edge rusher. So, again, big-time player there for Georgia, and they'll have to go throughout the spring without him. Could mean an opportunity for somebody else to step up and get their shot. When you talk about Damon Wilson, Gabriel Harris, Samuel Mpemba, there's a lot of different guys who will get a shot here. And other news around the conference, Robert Ayers officially going back to the University of Tennessee, completing his NFL career. Ayers has spent time as a high school coach in the Knoxville area as a defensive line coach. He was the DC at Oak Ridge High School. On Tuesday, the Vols officially announced Ayers will be added to Josh Heupel's coaching staff. He will fill a defensive grad assistant role for the program. He played for the Vols from 05 to 08. Recorded over 100 tackles and 9 sacks and an interception. So very well-respected player there and going back to help out with the Vols. And I'm sure a lot of Tennessee fans are excited for that. And there you have it. That's the latest news going on around the conference. We'll get to some more news in just a little bit, including Kenny McIntosh talking on the record about who he thinks will win the Georgia quarterback battle this spring. So we'll discuss that in a little bit. We'll also, coming up next, talk with our buddy Malik Zaire, former Notre Dame Irish quarterback, knows Tommy Rees better than anybody. So we're going to get his thoughts on who he thinks Alabama is getting in their new OC. It'll be exciting to talk about that with him. First, want to remind you guys that this episode is presented by our friends over at FanDuel, and FanDuel has got you covered for your Super Bowl party. It is America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about them being our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's even better. They got so many great features. Download the FanDuel app now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You will get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, it's super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Roll along here, Locked On SEC. We'll be joined by Malik Zaire here in just a few seconds. But first, we want to get back into diving into some of the news going on around the conference. And there was a lot going on as we dive back into it over at Georgia. Kenny McIntosh, he is leaving Georgia for the NFL draft. As we know, was at the Senior Bowl this past week. And according to Dog Nation, McIntosh is predicting that Carson Beck is going to win the quarterback battle over at Georgia. He told Dog Nation, I believe Carson Beck will have to be that leader. You also have Kendall Milton in the backfield and Jamin Dumas-Johnson on defense. But offensively, Carson Beck is going to have to step up and be a leader and earn that trust. So we will see. I mean, plenty of weapons there, including Brock Bowers. We talked about the Mizzou transfer, Dominic Lovett coming in at wide receiver. Some people think Carson Beck maybe has the tools, more talented than Stetson Bennett. Now, Stetson Bennett accomplished a lot in his career with his, I guess you would say, limited physical attributes. Carson Beck looks the part. Can he go out there and earn it? Going to be a fun quarterback battle to watch at Georgia this spring. Over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer and company, they will be getting some good news coming their way. South Carolina Athletic Department on Tuesday announcing a $1 billion modernization project at and around Williams-Brice Stadium. Some people saying it'll be reminiscent of Truist Park in Atlanta, which is home of the Braves. No formal plans, timelines, or budgets yet, but the request for information allows the school to hear ideas from developers for more than 800 acres of undeveloped property already owned by the school. And there are some big-time renovations planned, according to Athletic Director Ray Tanner. He said, we believe this could be a game changer for our university. He added one of the primary goals of the project is to expand premium offerings inside of Williams-Brice Stadium. Look, nobody wants to go sit on bleacher seats and watch a football game anymore. They want luxury suites. They want TVs. They want their buddies there, alcohol, all that other stuff. Other upgrades include improvements to concessions, bathrooms, and the concourses. So, again, if you're a South Carolina fan, better experiences coming very soon, it sounds like, with renovations down the way. Meanwhile, over at LSU, Brian Kelly and his staff, they had a really good defense last year. Their front seven held its own. Mizzou transfer Mekhi Wingo played very well for them on the interior of that line. They'll lose Jaquelin Roy, B.J. Ojulari, and others heading off to the draft. They're hoping Wingo will step up, play an even bigger role this year. And Pro Football Focus ranks Wingo as the number 3 returning defensive tackle for next year in college football. Wingo is the only SEC defensive tackle to make the cut on Pro Football Focus's top list. So we'll see what Wingo looks like next year for LSU. Of course, Ole Miss said goodbye to Chris Partridge, who has been hired as an assistant coach at Michigan, according to On3 Sports. Former Ole Miss defensive coordinator, previously coached for Michigan back from 2015 to 2019. It's not clear what his role, specific role, will be in Ann Arbor, but Ole Miss feels like they're going in the right direction with bringing over Pete Golding from Alabama. Meanwhile, an SEC football note, ESPN analyst Bill Connolly has the SEC with 2 teams in his top 10 nationally for returning production. He's got Texas A&M at number 7 and Missouri at number 9 as the 2 SEC teams in percentage of returning production. Now, the Aggies, they bring back 80% of their production, while Mizzou brings back 78%. And Connolly writes, while higher low returning production percentages doesn't guarantee a good or bad team, they do correlate well with improvement or regression. For a few years now, we've been attempting to expand how we measure returning production. The formula that he's created has shifts with each new year of data. He says the Aggies have placed nearly 30 players in the transfer portal, many of whom were recent star recruits. That could hurt down the line, but they don't lose many players who were impactful on the field in 2022. So, in other words, that production of guys who did play last year, they got a lot of them back. Is it a team that was painfully young and offensively disorganized last fall? Will be a lot more experience this time around. And with the new OC Bobby Petrino, if he could build some quick traction, a turnaround could be coming. As for Mizzou, he says quite a few key players from a strong defense elected to stay on the team this coming fall, and the offensive line returns mostly intact. If Eli Drinkwitz could finally figure out his quarterback spot, Brady Cook is back, but he's got a couple of blue chippers in there, and redshirt freshman Sam Horn and the Miami transfer Jake Garcia, and the Tigers might have everything else they need for a nice step forward next year. Again, we look at schools like Georgia and Alabama, they lose a lot and then they just reload, and those the players who step in sometimes are just as good or even better. So just because you're bringing back guys from last year, I always say this, when a team was bad one year and they go, oh, but they bring back their whole O-line. Well, if the O-line was no good last year, just because you're bringing them all back doesn't mean you're going to be better. But again, Bill Connolly, he gets into the advanced metrics at ESPN, and he takes into account, returning production. Oh, there you have it on that note. Jaden Rashada, quick note on this. He's known as the former Florida quarterback recruit who was set to receive a $13 million NIL deal with the Gators. Of course, the deal fell through. He ends up at Arizona State. But the Athletic did a little bit of a deep dive, and what they found was a breakdown of the payments. He was going to get $500,000 up front. Payments would increase from $250,000 a month as a freshman to $290,000 a month as a sophomore, $375,000 a month as a junior, and then $195,000 a month as a senior. He would have his residence in Gainesville, at least one branded Twitter post and Instagram post per month, up to 8 fan engagement events per year with the Gator Collective, autographs, up to 15 pieces of merchandise per year. Yeah, it didn't happen with the Florida Gators, but pretty interesting to see the details behind that one. In some SEC hoops news, Kentucky's tournament resume starting to take shape, and ESPN did their bubble watch, and they said Kentucky still has some work to do. It was updated as of Tuesday morning. Kentucky came into the week 16-7 overall, but 7-3 in SEC play. And ESPN's John Gasway said, from the opening tip of the St. Peter's game last year's NCAA tournament, it's been a bumpy and unpredictable road for Kentucky. The low point came when a 26-point defeat at Alabama was followed by the far more shocking 3-point loss at home to lowly South Carolina. While Kentucky did stumble early in the year, they've been much better lately. They've won 6 SEC games in a row, and their only loss came January 10th against Kansas in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. So keep plugging away, but we'll see what Kentucky is able to do to add to their resume. In SEC baseball nugget, ESPN released a lot of their game schedule for this year. They're implementing a mercy rule this year for SEC baseball games. Arkansas reporter Andrew Hutchinson shared that if a team is up by 10 or more runs after 7 innings, the game will be over. Previously, the SEC has had mercy rules in place for the conference tournament in Hoover, Alabama, but not regular season play. SEC teams will begin the college baseball season next week, February 17th. Conference play begins on March 16th. And just a highlight of some of the games that will be coming on ESPN. Ole Miss will take on Vanderbilt on March 16th. Number 1 LSU will be at A&M on March 17th. Number 2 Tennessee at number 1 LSU on March 30th. Ole Miss at A&M April 1st, and then Vandy at Florida May 12th. So those are just some of the games that ESPN put out there to keep an eye on. And lastly, South Carolina women's basketball team, they are on a really impressive string of dominance. They hold an SEC record for their run at the top of the AP poll. Last week, the Gamecocks settled that debate as the number 1 team in the nation. They beat number 5 UConn on the road with an impressive 81-77 win. Only Boston led them with 26 points, 11 boards, and 2 blocks. And now the showdown with LSU coming up this Sunday, February 12th, is going to be massive as the two teams are undefeated. But the Gamecocks will also play at Ole Miss and at Tennessee before the end of the season. We'll see if they can finish off with a undefeated season. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, our conversation with Malik Zaire. You don't want to miss that. Going along here, Locked On SEC, and been getting a lot of feedback about the Alabama coordinator hires. Some people like them, some people don't, and What is Alabama getting in Tommy Rees, their new offense coordinator coming over from Notre Dame? I figure nobody better to bring in than a former Notre Dame guy himself, Malik Zaire, who is hosting the Lucky Lefty podcast, former quarterback himself. He was there when Tommy Rees was there at Notre Dame. Malik, what's going on, man?
I was there when Tommy was throwing it, not calling the plays. I tell you that.
Right. Yeah, no. That's what I was going to bring up. Let's start there. You're the young guy coming in. Rees has been kind of the established starter. Talk about Tommy Rees, the player, in your time at Notre Dame, and kind of what you saw getting to know him, with him being the upperclassman, you being the young guy coming in.
You could definitely tell Tommy was a lot involved in game plan. He definitely knew what was coming down the pipe week to week. He was in tune with the coaches. He taught me a lot from the preparation and the relationship between your offensive coordinator and the quarterback position, how important it is. Those guys were on the same page. That was his 5th year at the time. So being able to see continuity between the growth of an experienced, mature quarterback 5 years in compared to me just starting out, I got to learn a lot. And I wouldn't say he's the most player inspired coach, in terms of bringing young guys along, but he's definitely a guy you can take notes from, learning along the way as you're watching and trying to learn yourself. So definitely a lot of coach quality to him. I think he has a head for the football game and in terms of what the newest nuances are, and always trying to scheme up different things to be successful on offense. And he ended up getting transitioned nicely into the offensive coordinator position. But we all knew that Tommy had a career in coaching as he was a player, and he's living his dream right now.
So let's talk about it. He ends up coming back to Notre Dame after a couple of stops at Northwestern and San Diego Chargers. He works a little bit in the NFL. Comes back in 2017 as the quarterback's coach, and then eventually, Brian Kelly elevates him to offensive coordinator. But you keep up with the Irish. You followed him the last handful of years, and so on and so forth. What did you see? What did he bring to this offense that maybe it was lacking, or maybe he kind of kept going? What did you see with Tommy once he got involved with the Notre Dame offense?
Well, I think one thing you can see is that he highlighted the talent that we had that was the best. We put a first-round tight end in the draft this year. We got to highlight the features of our offense, which we were strong at, which is running the football, which is something I know Alabama probably is going to love about Tommy. He's going to run the damn ball. But for us, seeing Tommy develop and sticking to his guns by staying nuanced enough and trying to be creative with getting the guys that are the best players on the football team to football, that's his best quality. I mean, you saw it in how he developed Michael Mayer, and he definitely makes his quarterback responsible for a lot more, in charge of a lot more, whether it be protection, switching the play, switching the run, hot routes, alerting guys on what's coming in terms of blitzes. So you're going to be heavily involved in the quarterback position, so it requires a lot of trust that Tommy has with the quarterback, which is interesting because, that affects recruiting. He only likes putting people out there that knows the system well enough to go execute. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. He had a lot of control and autonomy at Notre Dame, being the quarterback coach and the coordinator, and basically making all the decisions as a sub head coach on the offensive side. Being under Saban is going to be a little different, but I think if anybody's ready for a challenge like that, if you can survive Brian Kelly for as long as you did, I think Saban wouldn't be too hard either.
Yeah, somebody brought that up. There was a few parallels to Brian Kelly and Nick Saban just being those hard-nosed guys to work for. I want to go back because it's an interesting parallel. Alabama finds themselves in a quarterback battle now with Bryce Young off to the NFL. And, they got two very talented young guys in Jalen Milroe, who played a little bit this year, and Ty Simpson. But Notre Dame was kind of in that similar spot a year ago with Buckner, ends up winning the job, and then Drew Pine ends up taking over and plays much of the year last year. What did you see, or what effect do you think Tommy kind of had on those quarterbacks from both styles? Because the offense, let's be real, was kind of slow against Ohio State and Marshall, and then it kind of seemed to take off a little bit more with Pine in there.
Well, for whatever reason, Tommy recruited the hell out of the talent of our quarterback room, where we became a talentless quarterback room for a while. And I don't know why he did that. Maybe it was maybe he wants to go back to the Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron type of quarterback style for the offense. Uh, Maybe that's Tommy's thing, being able to recruit the quarterbacks that he did during his tenure. It definitely isn't the quarterbacks that you're going to be seeing sitting in New York at the end of the season, but they fit with what Tommy is able to make the offense go with. They're like a mini mind of what he's thinking as a coach, and a lot of reason why we got Sam Hartman. I think Sam Hartman had a lot of interest in going to NFL, but he saw a lot of quality and benefit in Tommy, a lot of similarities that I think they would have had a lot of connection with at Notre Dame, with him being a grad transfer or a fifth-year guy trying to transfer into Notre Dame for a year. Has a lot of success with transfer guys. You see what he was able to do with experienced guys like Jack Cohn being a backup at Wisconsin, but a fifth-year guy has some experience. So Tommy's definitely based more with guys that have played and guys that have got some good knowledge base of the offense or concepts that he likes and schemes he likes to run. So it's going to be interesting to deal with a whole room full of guys that are unproven. Even Jalen Milrose himself has had a lot of talent, but Tommy hasn't been a guy who's been able to coach guys like Jalen Milrose to the top of the potential that he has from a talent basis. So it'll be interesting to see how he coincides with Saban on his choice for quarterback as opposed to Saban's choice, because it may be a little different.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's an interesting concept, right? I mean, he had great talent in Notre Dame, but he's going to have more 4- and 5-star talent than he's ever had going into Alabama. So it's interesting just to go back to the quarterbacks real quick. So Buckner, from what I saw, had a little bit more running ability. He wasn't afraid to tuck in and run in. And we saw that throughout the years of Notre Dame. Brian Kelly almost, if you were a quarterback under Brian Kelly, he liked you to have that running ability. We saw them do it with Jaden Daniels this year at LSU a lot. But Pine seemed a little bit more to be a pocket passer. So, look, everybody's going to try to read between the lines. Milrose got the running ability. Ty Simpson, more of a pocket passer. The quarterback battle is going to play out. But who do you think, just looking at the two guys on the surface, suits more what Tommy wants to do? The mobile quarterback or the more true pocket passer?
He's 100% going with Ty Simpson. I feel bad for Jalen because he doesn't have a chance under what Tommy wants to do, unfortunately. I think what you got to see with Tyler Buckner is Tommy using Tyler Buckner's ability, what he does best all the time. And, the hero ball thing, you get to see a little bit of trend with that. Maybe it was because he was at Notre Dame and felt like he couldn't expand the offense to everybody else, but Alabama is a great place for Tommy to have no excuses. I think if you want to prove to be a young up-and-coming genius offense coordinator, Alabama not only gives you the resources, but it gives you the ability to do a lot of what you want to do on a week-to-week basis. And I think with the structure that Alabama has, I think Tommy will have a better time conforming his idea of what he wants as an offense on the Alabama team that, in my opinion, will be a lot more refreshed coming off of Bill O'Brien, who I think Tommy is better than, but will give a little more of a connection with the recruiting classes that are coming in from a youth perspective. But, Tommy is a very similar character to what a Saban would like, in my opinion. I think he would like the type of person he is in a day in and day out, very football result-based business type of guy. And I think the quarterback room will respect that. And it's going to be a competition. We haven't seen Tommy be in a position where he's had to play out 3 or 4 guys that can all do the job probably equally well, but he's got to find a guy that's best for him. And I think this will be a challenge for him.
All right, last thing. We're talking with Malik Zaire. We certainly appreciate your time. I got to ask this question. A lot of Irish fans didn't like Brian Kelly, didn't like how he left, don't root for him, wish nothing well for him. But also, you're a guy, you finished your career at Florida, and let's just be real. It was a tough situation you went into. It wasn't what you wanted it to be. Who do you root for least, LSU or Florida?
I got a lot of love for Florida. Billy Napier is out there. Jack Miller, shout out Jack Miller, and he hopefully gets a good shot out there. And LSU, man, they've always been a story program, just like Florida. I got to play at Florida for a little bit, so I would have to go with Florida, but a lot of ties to LSU from all the coaches that I coached with, or not coached with, but played under at Notre Dame or now at LSU, like Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly and the whole team over there. So they definitely are taking their formula and planting it in the SEC, and it's cool to see. They end up getting one over on Saban, but I think Coach Saban's got a lot in the tank, and it's going to be hard to beat him more than once. And Brian Kelly's a guy that's going to be consistent. Is he going to win anything from a championship standpoint? Probably not, but he's going to damn sure be in contention for it every year, and that's going to make it a tough out for him when it gets closer to the end of the season.
I will say the last three guys at LSU all did it. Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Ogeron. So if BK stays there long enough, he may get him one. Of course, he's got to slay the dragon again. Got to get through Saban, but we'll see. He is Malik Zaire. Tell folks a little bit about the podcast. Anybody who's looking to, look, I got friends all across the South. Everybody's either got a relative or a friend who loves Notre Dame. We can't explain it. We don't know why. They never went there, but there's Notre Dame fans everywhere. Let everybody know a little bit about your podcast.
That's right. Shout out to the Lucky Lefty podcast. Me and Sean Davis holding it down for everything Notre Dame football, everything on the up and up. And we spin it different. We're not giving the basic journalistic, Notre Dame things that you used to. We're going to add some culture in there, add some good football, and we're going to talk the real. So, the good thing about Notre Dame fans is that they either hate us or love us. And if you join our podcast, it's no different. So come over and listen, and you're going to have a good time.
Well, Malik, it's been great catching up with you, man, and best of luck with the podcast. And who knows, with the expansion talk, you guys might be in the SEC in a couple years, and we might be all doing this together soon. So,
we make a lot of money, so I don't know, but we'll see.
Malik, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, that is Malik Zaire here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Make sure to check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball all in one place. Hear from all the big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Again, our thanks to Malik Zaire. We'll be back tomorrow talking all things SEC right here on Locked On SEC.